Welcome to Writing and Influence, the podcast where words meet impact. I'm your host, Elaine Acker, and I believe that publishing, whether it's a book, a blog, or even a simple social post, has the power to amplify your influence and change lives. Your words have power. Let's start writing with purpose. Welcome, everybody. I want you to meet Christine Sadry. She's a UN diplomat, a mother, a world traveler, and now she's an award-winning author. Her memoir, 13 Years Lost, which I am holding right here, dives into what is it's a painful separation from her family in Poland. And it's a journey through some trauma. There is that. But along the way, there's a lot of healing. And even though it's a long road, she's done a remarkable job of telling that story. And it's a powerful reminder that even after years of loss, it's just never too late to rewrite your story. So that's what we want to talk about today. Christine, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you so much, Elaine, for having me. I really appreciate it.
If you don't mind, let's start by just diving into when did you know you just had to write this book? When did you first know you wanted to start to put words on the page?
Even in my teens, when all these crazy things were happening to me, I remember, there's so much every day or every week, something strange would happen. So I started to write down notes on a steno pad. And I would just, maybe one day I might need it. It wasn't even a thought to write a book. It's just a thought just to put down some situations that I was in that I didn't think most people were in, and to write them down so I don't forget. So maybe one day I want to look back and I want to remember.
Yeah. And so speaking of remembering, so you left Poland when you were 9? Correct?
Yes.
So what is your fondest memory of Poland, of that childhood before you came to the States?
Well, I have vague memories because, my mother died when I was 5. So I do remember playing in the hay, and we had all these animals, sheep and pigs and, just a regular farm. But most of all, I remember picking fresh strawberries. We had a strawberry patch in our back, and I would wait for them to start to grow. And it was just such a delicious moment.
That's such a pretty little picture, too. And I'm going to ask you some of the things that I know you've shared in the book, but I want the listeners just to hear a bit of this from you. So you lost your mom. You came to the U.S. You were being adopted by a Polish-American family.
Yes.
Things didn't go well after you got here. So we're not going to dwell on that, but let's just kind of walk through very quick some of the disconnects that happened because you were kind of stranded at the airport for a while.
Yes. When I arrived, there was no one there waiting for me. So I remember the stewardess, because I had a name tag on me, 9 years old. And she took me through all the passport control and everything and sat me down and left. And I remember thinking to myself, what's going to happen to me? Because I saw people meeting, hugging, and there was no one there. So I didn't know, I didn't even understand what the system was, what would happen to someone. So I thought, are they going to put me in some system? Are they going to set me back?
Yeah.
Or have I failed already? So it was these thoughts that were coming to my mind. But eventually, after an hour or so, my adopted father arrived and, grabbed the bags and gifts and everything. And we drove to Philadelphia. It was very late in the evening when we got there. And I met my adopted mother. They took me to my room and I had a lot of things with me. My grandmother wanted to make sure that I had gifts for them, even though we were, on a little farm and whatever. And, I went to bed that night, and the next morning I woke up and everything was gone. So I think that was just such a fear because I didn't understand. You come with gifts, with some suitcases, documents.
Yeah.
Every single thing disappeared, and I knew that there was something not right. There
Yeah.
just wasn't. It didn't feel right. Your instinct, your gut instinct says there's some. But I was afraid. I was in a foreign country. I didn't know a soul, so I didn't say anything. I was just observing. Saying
Right.
what is going to happen next.
Yeah. And I hate that for you because you can just reflect back to the 9-year-old that
Yeah.
you were and just imagine being in this situation. So we're going to fast forward just a little bit. We're going to go, um, it's, again, we're not going to dig deep into the things, but there was trauma there. And you went from that through about 13 years. So that's where our title of our book comes from. And by the way, the book is beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing the signed copy because there is nothing I treasure so much as a signed book.
That photo on the my book is
Yeah.
the day I left Poland. They put
Oh
me
my
in that dress.
gosh.
It's exactly me. They took that picture as I was ready to board the plane, so in case I got lost, they would know.
Wow. Yeah. So you take us through that journey. So the journey to the US through separation from your family for the 13
Yeah, never
years,
saw them again. Never was
complete
able to write to
no
them, even
contact.
speak about them.
Yeah. And then, yeah, and then you became a mom. So
Yeah.
as a teenager, a late teenager, you became a mom. And
Yes.
so now you're navigating motherhood. And then all of a sudden, in contrast, we see in the book, you get this opportunity to work at the UN.
Yes.
So
I
talk
went
to me
to
about that
well,
moment.
I was working at Social Security Administration, and by then I was reunited 13 years later with my sister, and I had no documents. So I had to,
Mm.
it wasn't like a Google. So I had to call each courthouse to see where possibly was my naturalization papers, how to put my life together. And once I got my passport, it was still a communist country. So how do I, how do I get there? What do I do? Who do I contact? So my sister that came from Poland that was with me, she suggested, she said, there's a person that is coming from Poland, a diplomat, and he's coming for the General Assembly, and he will help you. You can meet with him, and I think he will be able to help you to get a visa to a communist country, to communist Poland. So I took the train first time out of second, the first time I arrived, out of New York, on my own. I arrived at the United Nations, they check everything. I get into the building and I'm speaking with this gentleman, this diplomat. And at one point, it just felt, I mean, it's a beautiful building. And I just, from my heart, I'm like, wow, this must be an amazing place to work at. And at one point he said, after our discussion and the visa and what to do, he said, why don't you go and apply to personnel? I'm like, who, me? No. He said, you should go. And I kept saying no because who would ever hire, I'm in Philadelphia. And finally he convinced me. So I went to personnel. I got the application. Of course, I didn't graduate from college, so I could only put in for like an admin position, secretarial position. So I took later they called, I took tests, shorthand, typing, steno, all these different things. And it took about a year, and they called me in to come in. They had a post. So I had to resign from my position with the Social Security Administration, which was very scary. I was there 6 years to
Mm.
go on a temporary 3-month contract. I was terrified. And it's like, oh my God, do I go where I know nothing, I know no one, and I have to start all over on a 3-month contract? Or do I stay where I'm comfortable? I have an apartment. My daughter's okay. I have a babysitter. Everything is fine in my life.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. and I'm just going to so a friend of mine, she had children, so I asked her, a good friend, to take care of Dana while I went. I stayed at the YWCA, not the YMCA, close by
Sure.
on Lexington, and I believe it was like 54th. And I started working with the International Conference on Women, but I loved it. It was, I felt at home because there was all nationalities. There was everyone there, and it was the beginning of an amazing experience in my life.
Let's let's stop and unpack being brave here for just a second, because everything that you've described and everything you've done so far in this conversation is extraordinarily brave. And I think as women, often women don't take those chances. They have responsibilities as mothers. And so they're unable to, in their mind,
The risk.
take that risk that can then pay off. So what would you say to women that are hesitating, that have an opportunity, or can't even see themselves, like you had to be talked into
Yeah,
applying?
I would have never in my life imagined or even made that attempt, but it was like, do it. I would say take it because I imagine if I stayed in Philadelphia, I would never have left. I would have this very safe life. I would have gotten promoted because I was already an exception examiner. I would have had a nice, quiet life. Some of my friends never even got a passport. But to take that risk, as scary, and I mean, it was frightful because I had a daughter. I had to make sure that was okay, that I was able to find an apartment. And I had no one to fall back on. It was just me and that's it.
Yeah.
And even though I had a sister, but I was helping her. So I would say take the risk because the rewards are great. I mean, the beginnings are painful, are scary, are beyond belief. But if you don't take the risk, you don't get the reward. And I could have never imagined how my life would unfold. And I think once you take that risk, it's always, but you have to make sure you have the job. You have, you have to in your mind see how you can move along. I have to
Mhm.
find an apartment. I have to bring my daughter. She has, where's the school? All these things. But once you do it, you realize that you're capable of so much more than you give yourself credit. That that the world starts opening up to you, and it's just and then growth, and you grow as a person. So it's just take the risk slowly, cautiously, but take it.
Yeah. So tell me, what is one thing, if you think back to when you first were talking yourself into this and you took the risk, you took the job, and then things progressed beautifully throughout your career. What is the one thing that comes to mind that would have been the biggest miss? Like, if I hadn't done that, I would have missed this. I
If I
just think.
hadn't gone to Mozambique, I would have never met my husband.
Mm.
And at first, because I decided after being with the UN 10 years, working on international conference in Barcelona and Mexico and Switzerland and Amsterdam, it was still, admin work. And I wanted to
Mhm.
experience, hands, being there,
Yeah.
And my friend at the women's conference used to talk to me about Africa. And I remember like, I want to go to Africa in my heart. And so when they were looking for electro observers, I got myself to go to Angola, a one-way ticket to Luanda, where at one point I was held up at gunpoint and survived it, there was like a guy, a rebel with an AK-47 pointing at us as we were trying to take a shortcut for dinner. We all survived. I mean, being on a supply plane, helicopters, living in tents and containers. But once I had the taste of this life, I thought, oh my God, I need to try to do this again. And so a year later, another opportunity came for me to go to Mozambique. And there I was in the General Services Office, and I was working with elections as an electoral observer and other things.
Mm.
And at one point, my daughter actually came. I wanted her to experience, to travel, and to see the world as well. And there was a party, and I got us both invited. And there was the deputy head of the mission there. And I thought, I was dressed nicely. I thought, let me say good evening because, he's the big cheese, assistant secretary general, and everybody's saying hello. And I thought, well, it looks so rude not to say hello. So I went over and I said, very nicely. And I said, good evening, sir. How are you? And he looks over and he looks at my shoes and he says, you have ugly shoes. And I was, what? and nobody says that. And so I said, well, you have bad taste. I said, no, your shoes are ugly. They were the Mary Jane, the black Mary Janes,
Yeah.
And I said, these are fine Italian leather shoes. They're beautiful. No, so we're having this really strange back and forth. And I thought, I better stop this and just go away. So I excused myself. I went to another room, sat down on this like a little poof. And about 10 minutes later, this gentleman comes over, this diplomat, and politely says, may I sit with you? And I said, of course. And that's how it started. And then we were together 30 years. So, so I mean, and of course, my life took so many different turns and it was amazing. We went to the Congo, the former Yugoslavia. I was in Sarajevo. I learned how to drive a tank. I mean, so many things. So, if I didn't get myself to go on another mission, I would have never met my husband and I would have never had this amazing life. But of course, the last thing I expected was to meet anyone. I was just going there for work and just to experience, hands-on, work with the United Nations in some war-torn African country.
Yeah. I have to hear more about the tank. Tell me about the tank.
Oh, when we were in the former Yugoslavia, in Zagreb, Croatia, there's a lot of work and stress and it's still, I even was in Sarajevo, flown in at one point. So you do have some stress. So on Sundays, I think once a month, we had R&R, rest and recovery. And behind the airport, the Croatian airport, we had a area where the UN planes were, helicopters and other artilleries and things like that, safely, guarded and everything. So one Major Hogan from the Royal British Army, he said, we have R&R. Who would like to learn how to drive a tank? And of course, the men, yes. I'm like, why not? So I said,
I'd have been all over it.
So I said, me. So, he takes me in. I get in the tank. He starts it up. This is how you do the gas with the steering. You go up and down. And so he just left me in the tank and I drove around for 30 minutes and I up the hills and, I was like, wow, this is so
fantastic.
Cool. Loved it.
Well, besides tanks and husbands, what do people miss when they don't travel, when they don't experience other cultures?
I think the world becomes very small, because you don't, by not experiencing other cultures, you only know what is around you, what is in front of you. And there's just so much out there in the world. There's just so many things to see, to meet. There's so many wonderful people to meet, amazing, all kinds. I mean, tailors, and I even crossed the Congo River on the barge. One day, a friend of mine said, let's go cross over to the other country because there's the Republic of Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo. We were in Democratic Republic. So she's like, let's take a local barge and go across. And there's a little spa there. And I'm like, cross the mighty Congo River? Yes. So she's redhead, I'm a blonde. The two of us go there to this local port and get on this barge that was transporting goods. And I'm like, this is amazing. And and it makes you grow as a person. And you see people that we're all human. All we want is to have food, to feel safe, to have shelter. We're
Yeah.
all the same, but there's so much beauty in the world, and also so much sadness these days as
Yeah.
well.
That hopefully travel opens our eyes to, and we see how we can be different, make a
Yes,
difference, even if it's at home.
and even you grow as a person. The experiences make you so much more open to other cultures, to other people. The experience is amazing. I mean, I even took my grandkids. I took them to London, to Poland. They came to visit, also to Italy, to Rome. It's amazing, and they loved it. They
Yeah.
loved it.
So I can imagine you, and your experience traveling, all of your experience at the UN. I can imagine you accumulating all of these wonderful stories, that many of which you have shared now. So what was writing the book like? When did you start? How long did it take you? Kind of take us through that part.
It took years. It took because you never. Well, for women, we never think we're good enough. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
even no matter how strong and competent or brave or whatever. I wrote, and I'm like, so I wrote maybe 30 pages about 10 years ago. And, all the things, many other things my sisters didn't even know what I experienced being,
Yeah.
alone. You don't talk about it. You're so happy to see them. So I just, you know, my niece, I let her read. My niece, her sister Elizabeth found me. And so my niece lived with my loss and me coming back and all these things. So I let her read it. And she's like, Auntie Chris, you have to write a book. This is amazing. This should be a movie. And so like
Mm.
every year she would tell me, this is such an amazing, write me more, write more. So every couple of years I would write a few pages. And then finally it came to a point where maybe I had like 50 pages or 70. And then I'm like, okay, if this was a man's life, he would definitely write it.
Oh,
And I thought, well, as a woman going through so much, I think I have to write this. I have to write it first for my family because they really they don't know what happened at the UN. They don't know what happened in my childhood. I never
yeah,
spoke about it. I mean, I cried a lot, but I didn't talk about it. But also maybe there will be someone that would read it and would see that they have the power in them to go out into the world and they can make it. They
yeah.
can experience an amazing life. Just find that courage, find that push, take that risk. And I thought it just became important for me to write it, to get it out there.
And talk about how it's been received.
I will say that they, my friends, or even, I've done several book clubs, they've loved it.
Mhm.
One friend read it. It got her that gave her apartment, quit her job, and went to Tennessee because she said it motivated her to just experience life. It's something she's thought about all her life. And now at the age of 64, she's like, I've always wanted to do this. I'm doing it. She just left. And I was like, oh, wow. Um, and also, I had, it's been put in for a few awards, and I didn't write it to win any awards. I just wrote it. I knew, I knew what I wanted. You know, I knew what I had there, the experiences. I wanted to be a page turner,
Mm.
and it has won 4 awards, which is amazing. It's literary Titan Award. Oh my God! Every time I saw it, I was like, "Are they sure? Are they sure this is the right book?" Um, Independent Book Publishers Award. I went to
Yeah.
Minnesota, and my publisher said, she said, I've submitted several books, but yours the only one that won. And I'm like, are you sure? I'm, are you sure I won? So it's been, it's been amazing. It's been so well received.
Yeah.
And one lady, I belong to the Circumnavigators Club. She read it, and we just had a lunch on Saturday, and she brought the book with her. And her husband said, my wife was reading it, and she's just been talking about it nonstop. We were on a cruise, and she can't help it, but she's so excited about your book. So they had a presentation about Rome, and she pulls out my book, and she's like, "This book is so great. You must all read it." I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." Part of me, it's not the happiest of books. It has it has a lot of sadness, but a lot of joys. But I was just so happy and so thrilled that someone has found it and loved reading about it.
And I think I'll just say this to you, because I think whenever people are willing to tell their stories and put it out there, that's one of those places where we find more in common with each other than we ever thought possible.
Yes.
We see an example of someone who has taken the risk or has overcome, and again, made something new possible. So I think that's the best books don't get written because somebody wanted to win the award, you can't plan that.
No, I would have never been put in for it, but with the had this, you can put in, they can put in your book for an award.
Right.
So it wasn't even something that I didn't care. I just wanted to write it. My thought was, before I die, I have to write the book. Otherwise, God will make me come back and write it and relive my life. And I don't want to have to relive my life again.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, just kind of pulling that back to other people who are aspiring to write a book, is that you just do the thing. You do the thing. And then life unfolds again for you. And so I imagine this is what happened to you. You put your heart and soul into this book, and now the awards have unfolded. The relationships with other people have unfolded. What else has happened to you because you wrote this book?
Well, I've been doing like different book signings and book clubs, and I met so many wonderful men and women.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And sometimes people see you and they don't know, like they're a little standoff. Mm-hmm. But now that I see that people that read my book, it's so wonderful. We connect. And it's such a good feeling, and people are so wonderful. It's amazing. So, I'm doing, Barnes and Noble book signings. I'm going to be going to New York and see how that goes, hopefully. But just different clubs. I'm going to do a presentation at the Circumnavigators chapter of Naples. International men's club, women's clubs. So it's just opening up worlds and experiences. It really, it's such a wonderful growth experience.
You talked about writing down the notes early on, and kind of, you seem to be an awesome observer of people and human nature. And despite everything that happened to you, you see people as wonderful human beings, which, I just think that's fabulous in itself. But what did writing this book teach you about yourself that surprised you? Was there anything that you learned about yourself along the way?
The fact that I did it, honestly, because it's something that I never really thought I would. You have it in the back of your mind, but you don't really think you're going to do it. But it's also opening yourself up. It's just being an open book. It's scary. It's like, oh my God, people are going to really know, the good and the bad.
But again, we're back to being brave. It's being brave enough. So you found in yourself, I'm guessing, this courage.
Yes,
to do it anyway.
Yeah, I did. I'm like, wow, I'm okay. I can do it. I did it.
Yeah.
It does sort of, like, even though it's scary, but it's like you can breathe now. Wow, I've done it. I'm done, and now I'm open, it's out there, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's someone will read it and say, I can do it. If this orphan, came from another country, didn't speak the language, managed a life, it's possible. You can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. I got to say, and I still, even though I read a lot of books on my Kindle, I love holding a printed book in my hand. And I've had the opportunity to experience, holding my own book in my hand. And there is nothing like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just finishing the book, but it's holding that
Have,
story.
yes,
It's it's tangible. Yeah.
yes, it's
It's like
there.
you did that.
As you feel it. Yes.
Yeah. Christine, is there anything I haven't asked you that you would want to share with listeners?
Well, the only other thing that I would add is that through this whole experience, I've also had the honor and the privilege to be blessed by the Pope, which in itself was a miracle. I just happened to, end up at the United Nations like 6 months before the Pope was coming. And I had no idea, I never even imagined to go see him. Who am I? We were actually working in another building. And
Yeah.
my French show lady happened to get a ticket. Well, she actually snuck a ticket. And I ended up, waiting at the General Assembly doors were closed, but finally they let us in. I remember I was in the 10th row in the middle aisle because I stayed there the whole day. I was so afraid I was going to get fired. I didn't go back to work. And the Pope comes up and he's at the podium and he's speaking. And there were 2,000 people. There were diplomats, ambassadors, directors, staff, everyone. And you could hear a pin drop. And having someone who has gone through so much, I just never even thought, about doing anything. So I just sat there and I swear to you, my body lifted itself up. And I remember thinking, like, I heard an echo in my ear saying, excuse me, because I was sitting like in the middle row and I'm hearing, what am I saying? And it's like this echo, excuse me, excuse me. And I walk out and I start walking through the aisle. And I could, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? They're going to shoot me. They're going to fire me. And I could see, looking at my feet as they're moving one in front of the other. And I'm having a conversation with God. Please let me sit down. Please, God, let me sit down. They're going to shoot me. Please, God. 2,000 people are sitting there. God does not listen. So I get up to the podium and I couldn't, I couldn't do anything. I'm just standing there like begging God to let me to sit down and hide under the seat or something. And at that moment, the security comes and takes my hand and says, go sit down. And I couldn't talk. I couldn't move. And I'm like, I just stood there. So there was the assistant of the secretary of the Pope came over and he grabbed my other hand and he's like, stay there. And both of these men are holding my hands. And I'm like, God help. And they let go out of frustration. And then my hand starts going up. I'm thinking, God, why are you embarrassing me even more? There's 2,000 people behind me. And my hands start going up and up. And I'm thinking, where are they going? you know? And finally they get to this height. And I'm standing, just standing there like dumbfounded, like what? And at that very moment, the Pope finishes his statement, or maybe, I don't know, he just finished, turned around and outstretched his hands to me. And so the security let go of the rope. I walked up. The Pope gave me his hand. I kissed the ring and he gave me a blessing.
Mm.
And I was like, and this was the first day. So I didn't even know what impact he had on people. And I was like, oh my God, this was just an unbelievable moment in my life that so many miracles can happen.
Well, you know what? I can't think of a better place to kind of wrap up than that one. That's such a special moment. And it's just one of the incredibly special stories that you've shared with us. And, I think that your book it's not just a memoir. It's something that really reminds us of that resilience and strength of the human spirit and the power of healing.
Yes.
So for anybody who's listening and you just feel like the past or your experience have just been too heavy or it's too late for you to fix things. I just want you to find inspiration in this today. Feel like you have permission to reclaim your voice, and your story, and find peace within your story. I'm going to make sure that everybody has a link to 13 Years Lost in the show notes. So you can go grab it there. And, if you're compelled to write a story, there's somebody who really needs to hear it. So, Christine, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor just to be here with you and share my story. Thank you.